everyone, in this video we'll see how do we securely transfer files to Amazon S3 using AWS Transfer Family Service. Below are the agenda items for today. Topic 1 will cover what is AWS Transfer Family. In topic 2 we'll see the benefits of using the service. In topic 3 we'll see how does it works. In topic 4 we'll cover a demo presentation of setting up the SFTP server. So let's start with what is AWS Transfer Family Service. So it's a fully managed service for file transfer. It supports basically SFTP, FTP and FTPS, which is FTP over SSL. It works well with your existing custom identity provider, and it works well with your existing DNS or Route 53 service. Let's see what are the benefits of using the service. It's easy to set up within just few clicks and few steps. It's secure, auditable and supports CloudWatch monitoring. It's easy to migrate your existing transfer services to AWS. You don't have to worry about managing the infrastructure by yourself. Data can be transferred in and out of S3 bucket and EFS. And last but not the least, it's built in with high availability auto scaling and multi-SD deployment. Now let's quickly see how does it actually works. As a user, you would first have to go and create an S3 bucket or an EFS file system. Then you upload your files and objects to that bucket so that you could provide access to your third-party client. You attach bucket policy to it and whitelist some particular IP or an IP range. And then you create a AWS Transfer Family service, which would be used to transfer the file securely. You attach the S3 access role to it. And then you choose your protocol, whether you want to do it over SFTP, FTP or FTPS. If it's an FTPS protocol, then you have to attach a certificate from ACM. And then you choose your identity, whether you want to use AWS Directory Service or you want to use Service Managed Identity or you want to use any custom identity. Then the next step would be to add a service endpoint to the service on which the SFTP service would be accessible and which would grant the access to the bucket. Optionally, you could use a DNS service like Route 53 or Cloudflare so that user can directly go to that DNS hostname and access the service. This is how we use AWS Transfer Family to securely transfer files. So to start the demonstration, I'm logged into my AWS console and now I'll go to the S3 service. So I'll click over here and it'll open an S3 dashboard for me. So I'll click over here to create a bucket and then I'll give this bucket a unique name. Say tech tutorial with Piyush-101. That should be enough. And then I'll uncheck this box, block all public access. Our final goal is to grant this bucket access to the other users as well. And I'll click on the acknowledgement. And I'll keep rest of the settings as default and I'll click on create bucket. So a bucket is being created. Let's go ahead and upload some files to it so that we can test the transfer of files in and out of this S3 bucket. I'll click on upload and I'll click on add files over here. Okay, so I'll just upload a few files from here. Let's say these two and I'll click on upload and it will just quickly upload those files for me. I'll click on close over here and I can see these files are over here. Now that we have uploaded our objects, our files to it, now the next step is to create a bucket policy and attach to the bucket. So we'll go to the permissions tab and we'll scroll down a little bit and then there is an option of bucket policy. Click on edit. Then we see there are two options to create the bucket policy. Either we could create it with an example or we could use the policy generator. So I click on this one. Okay. So we'll select the policy type as S3 bucket policy. Effect is allow. Principal is star. It by default have selected the S3 service. So we'll select the actions from here. So it should be just the get object, put object and delete object. So I'll just scroll down. I'll do this list bucket as well. And then I'll select put object. Here it is over here. So these three actions should be good enough for us. Then we'll put Amazon resource name over here. So I'll go back to the bucket. I'll copy the bucket ARN from here and I'll paste it over here. Okay, then we'll have to add a condition, okay, which says like only allow certain IPs to access this bucket. So I'll have to put IP address over here, and key which is AWS source IP over here. Okay, and I'll put the value over here. So the source IP over here, I'll be putting the value of the source IP of the client to whom I'll be providing the access to this bucket. So I'll just put my IP for now, and I'll click on add condition. So it has generated a condition that check the IP address and only execute this policy when the source IP is this one. Okay, then click on add statement over here, and it generated a policy for us to review. So this policy states to provide access to anyone on this particular resource, which is a bucket, to perform these three actions: get object, put object, and list bucket. Keeping in mind this condition which says only this source IP would have access to the bucket. Okay, so we reviewed everything looks good. So we click on generate policy, and it would have generated a policy for us. So we just have to keep in mind a few things over here. First is we'll have to provide access to the bucket as well as object inside the bucket. So I'll be adding this statement as well over here. And apart from that, there'll be one more object that we have to add over here. So I'll just quickly turn that into an array. Okay, and I'll add one more ARN, which is the parent folder, which is the actual bucket name without the objects. Okay, so I'll do this. I'll close the array over here, and I'll put a comma over here. Okay, so this is a bucket, the bucket policy that we'll be using now. Okay, so I'll just copy this one from here. I'll go back to my policy. I'll click paste, and I'm missing inverted commas, so I'll add these two as well. Looks good. I'll click on save changes. Now it has attached the bucket policy with the bucket. Now that we have created the bucket, uploaded the objects to the bucket, and attached a policy to the bucket, next step is to create a AWS Transfer Family server. So I'll quickly search this AWS Transfer Family, and I'll click on this one. So as stated earlier as well, this is the service that we're going to use to transfer our files in and out of AWS. Please keep that in mind that it will have certain charges associated with it. So the server endpoint is 30 cents per hour per protocol per hour, and data upload and download would be charged as 4 cents per hour per GB. Okay, so these are the steps that we're going to follow. So let's get into it. Let's click on create server, which is our first step. Let's select the protocol. So we could select SFTP, FTPS, which is file transfer over TLS, and FTP protocol. So I'll be using this one for this demonstration purpose. So I have selected SFTP, and I'll click on next. Then we have three different options for the identity provider. First is a service managed, wherein we could create our own user within this particular server and share the public and private keys. Or we could use our AWS directory service like our on-prem Azure Active Directory or LDAP service, or any identity provider that you guys are already using. Or we could create a custom identity provider as well. So I'll use this one for now. Okay, I'll click on next. Okay, now it asks me endpoint details. So whether it would be publicly accessible or the VPC hosted. So I'll select this one, accessible over the internet. We have an option over here to provide custom host name, or we could use none, which would generate a default server endpoint for us. As I've selected other DNS over here, as my domain is registered in Cloudflare. So I'll just put my custom domain host name over here, which is this one. And then I'll click on next. Then I have two options to choose a domain, whether I want to enable the access on Amazon S3 or Amazon EFS. So I'll select this one, S3, click on next. And then this is optional step to monitor the server with CloudWatch logging. So I'll just leave it blank as I don't want any role to be attached to this server as of now. And I'll keep rest of the options as the default as well. Click on next. And I'll just review everything. The protocol is SFTP. Our identity provider is service managed. So I'll be creating another user. And then our endpoint is public. This is our custom host name. We have used Amazon S3 as the domain option, and these options were default. So I'll click on create server. So once you do that, it will take few minutes and then it will be started. And meanwhile, we could go ahead and create our users. To create a user, I'll have to select the server from here and then click on add user. Then I'll give this user a name, say my user one. Then I'll have to add an Amazon S3 access role with it, which should have the sufficient privileges to list bucket, cat bucket, delete object, put objects, not more, not less. And I'll just, for this demonstration purpose, I'll just use the S3 admin access role, but make sure you review this role thoroughly. Then this will be the user's home directory when then the user starts an SFTP session with this server. So this would be our bucket name, and I'll remove this one as I don't want any customized directory to be created for each user. Over here, we have to put the user's SSH public key. Okay, so for that, I'll go over here and I'll open a tool which is PuttyGen. Okay, I'll click over here and it will generate a random public and private key pair for me. If you are on Mac or Linux, you could use SSH keygen utility, which does the same thing. So I'll copy the public key from here and I'll just paste it over here in the public key section. That should be good. And then we click on add. So this step would successfully add a user to the server. After the user have been successfully added to the server, the next step is to go to IAM role that we have attached to the server and establish the trust relationship. So I'll just open a new tab and I'll go to IAM. I'll go to IAM and I go to roles. This was the role that I have used as S3 admin access. I'll click on that. I'll go to trust relationship and I click on edit trust relationships. Then replace EC2 with transfer. So this will enable AWS transfer family service to assume this role. So I'll click on update trust relationship. And so as we have used our custom domain as the endpoint, so we'll have to do one last step before we can actually test the data transfer, which is we have to go to our DNS service provider and create a CNAME record with endpoint as this server URL. So I'll just copy the endpoint URL from here and I'll go to my DNS service provider. For me, it's Cloudflare. You could use Amazon Route 53 as well, or whichever is your DNS. Then I'll click on my domain. I'll go to DNS over here and I'll click on add record and I'll create a CNAME record for this purpose. Name should be our root domain and target should be the one that we have just copied from the server. And I'll disable the proxy status and click on save. That should be it. Now that we have created a CNAME record with target as our transfer server endpoint, it will redirect all the traffic coming to this particular domain to the server endpoint that we have created. Now let's go and test our connection. Okay, so I'll open a FileZilla, which is a SFTP transfer client. You could use WinSCP as well. So I'll go to file, click on site manager and I'll create a new connection string over here. So I'll click on new site. I'll choose the protocol as SFTP. And hostname is because we have used the custom domain. So I'll put my custom domain over here, tech tutorials with Piyush.com. Port is 22 and logon type should be key file because we have generated a public private key pair. username is my user1, and we have to input a private key over here. So I'll go back to my putty generator. We generated a public key from here. I'll also click on this save private key. Okay, click on yes. I'll just overwrite the existing file that I have. Click on save. Okay, and then I'll browse this one and use that as the private key. Okay, that should be good. Now I'll click on connect. Click OK, and it's now trying to connect to this host name, and we can see this as the home directory of the user, which is the root bucket, and we have these two files over here. Now let's try to do some transfer of file. Let's see if we could just download any file from the bucket. Okay, it says transferring, and it transferred the file from the bucket to my server. Let's try to do the other way around. So let's try to copy this file over here. And this is also done. So our upload and download both are working fine, which is what we wanted to do out of it. So that's it guys for this video. I hope you would have learned something out of it, and I hope you liked the video. If you did, please go to the comment section below and tell me about it. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet. Thank you very much for watching the video. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.